Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 67 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Pasquale Veri.
And I'm Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Starr is a drummer, singer, producer, career coach, and public speaker. As a drummer, Matt has built a reputation for working with some of rock's most influential musicians, including, of course, Ace Frehley, Joan Lynn Turner of Rainbow, Kevin DuBrow of Quiet Riot, and most recently alongside Billy Sheehan and Paul Gilbert of Mr. Big. He also worked with members of Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi, and Whitesnake.
Also in the studio, Matt has recorded with producers Jimmy Bralower from the PP&R Atlantic Records, Madonna, Mick Jagger, and Jett. Toby Wright, who worked with Metallica, Alice in Chains, and Korn. Mike Chapman, Blondie, Knack, and The Sweet. Dave Bianco, AC/DC, Tom Petty, and Kiss. Anthony Focx from Aerosmith and Foreigner. And the last one, Warren Huart from also Aerosmith and working with the Fray.
Garnered the respect of the Kiss Army for his kindness, accessibility, and willingness to give his time to fans, making them feel like they are friends. Here on the show, we have Matt Starr. Matt, thank you for giving us your time to be on the show. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's
Welcome.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
Matt, just to get going, I guess the best place to start this discussion is, right from the beginning. What were your early musical influences?
So the first record I ever bought was Shaun Cassidy, the Do Run Run. So that would have been like 77-ish. My neighbor, I had an older neighbor up the street. He had that. And it came with a poster. So that was cool, which is, as Kiss fans, we know where we're going with this. But I was like, it's got a poster. Like, wow, that's so cool, And the next record I bought was Kiss Alive 2, which had tattoos and the booklet and the order form and all the stuff. And I asked my dad for the money. I think the Shaun Cassidy record was $7. And once I got the Kiss record, I smashed the Shaun Cassidy record. But the funny thing is, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't do it in front of anyone. And I definitely didn't want my dad to find out. But there was just something inside me that said, I must destroy the Shaun Cassidy record. And, I think that's just kind of how we get as kids. Like, we get into if you're into Metallica, you might not be into Poison. And if you're into, this thing, those guys suck. And it's like these groups we get into. Now, the truth be told, I have a record collection of 3,000 plus records, and I own 3 copies of that Shaun Cassidy record. So I've got a promo, I've got a UK and a regular US, all with the posters. So that's a great record. But yeah, it's funny, so that was the early stuff. So for me, it was Kiss, Cheap Trick, Aerosmith, Iron Maiden, AC/DC, like that. And they were, except for Iron Maiden, those were all live records. So it was Kiss Alive 2, Cheap Trick at Budokan, Aerosmith Live Bootleg, and then AC/DC If You Want Blood. So that was my centerpiece, and I love all those drummers, and that stuff is really important to me, And then it kind of went from there. I discovered I saw Tommy Lee on MTV, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it was the Looks That Kill video. So then it was Motley Crue and some of those bands, I liked some of those bands at the time. Some of them I still do, but I kind of got tired of that. And because of an interview I'd read in a drumming magazine, Tommy Lee talked about John Bonham. And I knew Led Zeppelin, but I didn't really know it, And so I went back and got into all that classic Led Zeppelin, the Cream, Jimi Hendrix, Deep Purple, Humble Pie, Free, The Sweet, it started swirling all late 60s, early 70s, that whole thing. So that's another era that I got into that a little later, but I love that era as well.
So Matt, having mentioned all those great bands, were you instantly hooked with drums? So did you just go into the drumming thing? And who were your influences as a drummer?
No, I wanted to play guitar. So in America, like in the Northeast, probably a lot of the country, but we had J.C. Penney. I don't know if you guys had that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So it was like the analog Amazon, right? You'd get like a phone book, and they had everything from tires to furniture to clothes to musical instruments. And I went through there and I found a Les Paul that looked kind of like Ace's, and I said, that was a copy, it was like probably $70. I said, that's what I want. But I didn't get it for Christmas, and I was so upset. Of course, I did get a bike that year, so it was a good year. But my mom was like, well, why don't you play drums? You could play drums in a school band. I was like, I don't know. And then about a couple of weeks later, I joined the school band. And so that was the start. So kind of wasn't my first choice, but it was my first instrument. And then I went on, years later to start playing guitar as well. But yeah, so drums was the first thing. And again, like I said, Bunny Carlos from Cheap Trick, Joey Kramer of Aerosmith, Clive Burr from Iron Maiden, Peter Criss and Eric Carr shortly after that, and then Phil Rudd and Tommy Lee. That was kind of those are the early ones, kind of no bullshit rock and roll drummers,
Okay, got it.
So Matt, we all know that in 2012, you were announced as Ace Frehley's drummer. But before we go there, tell us a little bit more about how you got into Kiss after you got your Kiss Alive album.
I heard it first, he was listening to Kiss, and I said, what is this? And he goes, oh, it's Kiss. And he showed me the record. I was like, oh my God. I think that picture of Gene on the front with the blood is like one of the most amazing images ever, just in entertainment, because you can't see that he has a bass on. So it's like, it's kind of scary. It's kind of sexy. It's kind of, cool. It's like all these things. And I think in a way, like he, really define that band, although, of course, Paul's the front man and he defines it in his own way. I know all the guys do, but, so that was like, I just got hit like with everything. And then you open up the center and they're on the ride. There's a Love Gun tour, it's just like, give me a break, man. It's amazing. So that was it. And I just, at age, 8, I was into Kiss. So I loved rock and roll, but I really loved Kiss. And I draw their faces and trace their autographs, and do all that stuff. And I saw them in 1979 in New Haven, Connecticut. Dynasty Tour, Judas Priest was opening up. And I was in 4th grade. And that was like, that was total sensory overload. The lights go down and people are throwing around Frisbees, fireworks, smoking weed. I'm like, what's that? And I asked my mom, what's that smell? And she goes, I don't know. And I believe her too, because my parents are like
I love it.
super straight laced. And but that was it, and then the next concert I went to, my cousin took me to see Moody Blues, and I remember they had like a palm tree on stage. I'm looking, going, is this gonna explode? Is this gonna like turn into something? Because I saw Kiss first, so that was the template. So they set a pretty high bar.
And now it's really incredible. You started off as a Kiss fan, and now you're working with Ace Frehley. How exactly did that happen?
I was living in Los Angeles, and I had heard through social media that his drummer had quit. Made a bunch of phone calls. Found Brent Woods, actually, who plays with Sebastian Bach, and played with a bunch of other, Vince Neil and a bunch of other artists. But he goes, oh, I know the bass player, Anthony Esposito, who was in Lynch Mob originally, and at that time he was playing with Ace. He goes, yeah, I'll give him a call and connect you guys. And we connected on the phone, and I auditioned a couple weeks later with just Anthony and Todd Youth, who was a guitar player at the time. And a couple weeks later, I got the call. All right, dude, you got the gig. So it was pretty, I felt was when I talked to Anthony, I just felt like a connection. Like we talked about the gig, and he goes, okay, and you play, okay, and can you sing? Because you got to sing the Paul Stanley stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem, not that Paul singing is challenging, but just like I'm comfortable singing like that in that range. And So he's like, okay. And then we just kept asking me more and more questions. And it just, and even he said, he goes, all right. And then he goes, I got a pretty good feeling about this, you know? So I just felt in my heart, like, okay, that's my gig. I just got to go get it, you know?
Had you met Ace before that, or
No,
never?
no. And I didn't, I didn't meet him at the audition. I met him when we started rehearsing,
Okay.
a few weeks after all of that.
Okay. So I'd like to remain on the subject of Ace Frehley. So a lot of fans seem to think that Ace is a rock star by nature and therefore not very professional, right? So what is your experience working with Ace compared to some other artists like, Joe Turner or Kevin DuBrow? So what's your experience with Ace?
Yeah, I mean, I've known Ace, now a little over a decade. I mean, he's been sober the whole time I've known him. So, we've all as Kiss fans heard all kinds of stories from the 70s, maybe the 80s, or even the 90s. So that I've only known this Ace, and he's just always been very sweet guy, fair, cool, and like above all, just a musician. We've done 5 records now, I think 4 or maybe 5. And it's just like he wants to get the tone right, wants to make sure it feels good, wants to make sure that like we've got a good take. Hey, let's take that take and splice it with this take. And hey, that fill, can you do that fill in this part? It's like just about the music, So I've always experienced him like that. I mean, he's Ace, you know what I mean? If you go to see him live, like he just says what's in his mind at the time. He's hilarious, So and I think that's something that's, endearing. But it's been a great experience. It's always a lot of fun. I love when he takes, this is a plastic Pellegrino, but he'll get, in the rider, we'll have like Pellegrino and he'll bring out, they'll have a row of bottled Pellegrino and he'll take one sip and then just throw it out like a glass bottle. Right on. I always hit a crash cymbal when somebody catches it. But, he's like that where he knows that the fans they love having parts of the show. So he'll just keep throwing picks one after another, making sure everyone gets a pick. A glass bottle into a crowd of people. Okay. Maybe not everyone will do this, but like he knows that the fans going to go, I got a freaking bottle
of course,
spring water that he drank out of. Come on, man. So he's a very sweet guy.
Cool. So lots of fun. Sounds like it's
lots of fun. Always fun.
Good stuff. So, Matt, we know that you don't like being associated with one particular artist. So I guess that must be difficult when you're working with any member of Kiss. But at the same time, you're not directly linked to them, but you are seen as an artist with, in your own terms by the fans. So you kind of separate from, let's say, the Kiss camp. So why do you think that happens? So what do you attribute this to?
Attribute what part?
Being like not associated with let's say the Kiss entourage, that like being only a Kiss camp. So you're an artist by yourself. So you do so many things, and at the same time you're working with them, but you do your own thing at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, look, I love being associated with the Kiss extended family or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Because I'm a fan. And so that's fine with me. But I think, just working with other artists, and there was a 4 or 5 year period from like 2014 to 2018 that I was with Mr. Big, so that's part of my story, and like playing with Lynn Turner and George Lynch, Kevin DuBrow. So I think just the fact that I have other gigs, and of course with social media, we see what everyone's doing, and I'm real active on there. So if I'm in the studio or if I'm playing a show with somebody or whatever, I let everyone know. So I think, that's kind of up to the artist, to define themselves online. And if you just post pictures of your lunch, then people are going to know that you eat lunch, and that's okay. That's great. Or if you let people know, hey, I'm here. And I think too, it's cool because most people will never go to a sound check. They'll never be backstage. They'll never know what it's like to walk from backstage and the lights go out and the crowd starts screaming, and then, all right, are you ready? And the announcement and like all that. and you can just bring your camera with you. So I love doing that. I like it when I watch my friends and they go on stage and I see that walk on. It's awesome. So I think that's a great thing about social media, that we can share all that stuff. And I like doing that. So I think perhaps, that's how I've been able to, just define myself and let people know everything that I do.
That's a very interesting point of view. I never thought of that, like using the media just to define how you position yourself, in the music industry. That's really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah. I think also it's like actors, right? You have some actors who do the same thing and are typecast in that role. But Matt, you do so many different things that people don't think Kiss, Matt Starr. They think Matt Starr because you are so busy doing so many different things. And I guess that's where I want to go with this episode right now, is to talk about some of your projects. And the first is the producing and recording drums with Matt Starr DVD. Tell us a little bit about that particular project.
Yeah, so that's one of a few different things I've done with producer Warren Huart. So Warren produced, what was the first one? You guys might know better than me. Maybe Space Invader. I think that was the first one.
It might have been.
And Ace and I had recorded the record, and then he was having different guys mix it.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me and he said, "Hey, I sent you that mix of that one mixer. What did you think?" I go, "That's okay." He goes, "Yeah, I know. It's kind of okay." He goes, "You know any other guys?" And a friend of mine, Phil, was walking by, who owned a studio in Los Angeles and worked with a bunch of producers. And I said, "Give me 5 minutes." And I go, "Hey, Phil, we need a producer, engineer, mix engineer." And he suggested Warren. So that was how we did that. Warren mixed one song. Ace was really happy with it. So that was the beginning of that. And so then Warren and I got to know each other. And Warren has a channel called Produce Like a Pro. And he's got all these courses and membership, and just gives a ton of knowledge and information, interviews engineers and producers and mastering engineers and artists. And has really got this amazing community. And so one of the things we did was talking about recording drums. And I think that's something that's, for drummers especially, it's kind of a mystery. If you've never been like on that side of the glass, right? We're always just playing, but we're not on the other side. And drums, guitar, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with guitar, but if you get a Marshall cab and you put a mic in front of it and basically the right position, it'll sound pretty good. Drums, there's 1,000 ways you could mess that up. You're dealing with like multiple microphones, there's cymbals, there's drums, there's the room, there's all these different aspects. So so I really enjoyed doing that and sharing that information. And again, Warren's great at really knowing what his audience wants. And that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And again, just sharing the information, not keeping it a secret,
Yeah, I was about to say just that. That's the recurring theme with all of your projects. It's about you giving back, which I think is just amazing. And speaking of which, so any tips for our drummer listeners out there from that DVD that you could share?
Yeah, I think the best thing that lessons I learned was, in the early days, back in my day, we had it's called a 4-track, right? So you had a cassette and you had 4 tracks. So you could use 4 microphones, but really all you could afford was 1. And so you'd put up 1 microphone and then you'd play. And if it was too much cymbals, you had to play less cymbals. I mean, you could move the mic around a little bit, but in the end, it just picked you up.
Mm-hmm.
If you weren't hitting that snare drum hard enough in relation to the other instruments, you had to hit it harder. So I learned how to really balance myself. So if you're standing in front of me, ideally, you just go, great, we just got to put up some mics and this will pick it up, So I think iPhones are great. The audio that you can get from that is really good. And just put that in the room somewhere where it picks up everything and listen back. And that's what you're doing. And if there's too much cymbals going on, you got to lay off the cymbals. That's a big one with rock guys because we like to just smash everything. Mm-hmm. And drums usually should be smashed. But those cymbals, don't hit those as hard, and the consistency is another thing too. If you're going to hit that snare drum hard once, you got to hit it that volume through the whole song. So the consistency is really important. So again, I think what I'm just saying is it starts with the drummer, and the control and the consistency that they have.
Does that become kind of your recipe, or kind of you adjust depending who you play with? Let's say playing with Ace, and you know some of the Ace's song, maybe they require you to set up differently, or you always play kind of the same. You set your microphones the same way.
Yeah, I mean, with Ace, it's just rock, right? So, even if it's like a slower song or something, it's still, I got to hit those drums, and especially live, it's about the volume and the intensity. And so if you bring it down, if the whole band brings it down, that's cool. Like I just saw the Black Crowes, Brian Griffin, drummer for Black Crowes, did a great job. And they bring it down, but everybody brings it down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're playing with Ace, it's just fucking loud the whole time. So you got to really just keep that intensity, and there's ways to kind of make it a little smaller, make it a little bigger, but you got to really keep that intensity. So I do different styles of music and I enjoy that. So I think, certain things are more, there's more diversity within the style of music, but typically rock gigs, again, even if it's a ballad, I play with George Lynch and we do like Alone Again, the Dokken song. It's, it's a power ballad or whatever you want to call it, but you're still hitting those drums just as hard,
Pat, we mentioned that at the beginning. So not only as a fantastic drummer, but you're also a producer. So can we say that, with all the amazing success that you have achieved, somehow you want to give back to musicians, to young guys. Is it a fair statement that somehow you want to kind of give back to the community? Sharing all that you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with producing, you get people giving you, used to be demo tapes, literally, but now it's like, hey, here's my link, check out my song. And a lot of times you can hear, okay, this band is good, but it could be so much better with just a few little changes, and they just might not know any different. Or maybe the guys are playing the way they play live, which is really exciting and intense, but then in the recording, it sounds kind of sloppy. And so like, how do you get that dialed in? So yeah, I love working with younger bands, ideally, and just kind of helping them learn those lessons that we all learned on our way up. Because again, a lot of times it's like, it's not like they're not good enough. It's just, don't do so much of that, do more of this, or wait to do that towards the end of the song, things like that.
Okay. Could you give us a few examples of some acts that you have produced recently?
Yeah, sure. There's a band from there's three Sweden, what are those countries up there? Sweden, Norway, Finland. Anyway, I'm blanking. But anyway, that region of the world called Fire Within. That's a really powerful theatrical metal band. Amazing songs, kind of reminiscent of Queensryche.
Oh yeah, okay.
Now, that was a band that I produced, and they came to Los Angeles. We did that at Tommy Lee's studio, which was in Calabasas, and that was a lot of fun. That was a great thing we did. Trying to think of some of the other artists I've worked with. I'm kind of blanking off the top of my head right now.
It's okay. Well, we'll come back to the question.
Yeah, I'm going to look up somebody's name because I want to give these guys a shout out. But go ahead.
Cool.
So I think one of your most important projects, and this brings together everything we've been talking about so far about all of your projects in your career, is your coaching for musicians and business owners, your career coaching. Now, we've been talking about all of your accomplishments, but it hasn't been an easy road to get to where you are now. Can you tell us a little bit about that road that you were on that actually inspired your career coaching?
Yeah, for sure. I will say one thing. I just mixed something for a band called Gypsy Bridge, which is a Canadian act.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
Montreal, yeah, Gypsy Bridge, and Bridge is BRYDG. We just did a track called Breathe. So I would say in the next month or so. Keep an eye out.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, the coaching thing, again, that's another one of those things where age 8, I discovered Kiss, blew my mind, and, just knew what I wanted to do. In that moment, I wasn't thinking, oh, this will be my career. I found my life's work. But I just was like, this is awesome. I love this. And I never felt that passionate about any other thing that I could do with my time, So fast forward to like my mid 30s, and I played with a couple bands, and I played with bands constantly, but never got to that next level, and I couldn't figure out like what's the problem here. I know I'm a good drummer. I think I have all the pieces, but it wasn't happening, and it was really frustrating. And I went through this change. I mean, I basically realized that I was the problem, kind of my thinking and my emotions and like not having them be in sync and not really having goals other than to make it, whatever that meant, and there's a lot of other things, but I think, being a musician, it's kind of a long shot, so you've got to have a certain amount of I don't know about ego, but just confidence, right? But then that
persistence, yeah,
and certainly persistence, but like that confidence can, cross over into kind of being an asshole, and that's not conducive to anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something that I had to learn how to temper and like keep it in check. So when I'm on the drums, be that guy, but then when you're off, say hi, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Like don't act like a rock star, And so I got the gig with Ace, and then with Mr. Big and Lynn Turner. All these things started happening, and so then people started reaching out to me. What are you doing? Like, I'm seeing you have all this success, and so I started, offering that as something that I could do, because a lot of times it was drum lessons, but they just wanted to talk about the business. I said, why don't I just offer coaching? And so that started with drummers and then turned into just all musicians. And then I started getting people who knew me because they were a fan of Ace or whatever, but they owned a business. And is this something you could help me with? And so I started working with people who were not musicians, and realized that what I was teaching was applicable to anyone who was basically a business owner. So as a musician, you're a business owner, and you need to think like that. And so all of those things that I had learned and I was teaching to other people, those were applicable to someone if they owned a landscaping business or, they had a company of their own. So that's kind of how that all came about. And I love doing that. I mean, it's so rewarding, and people don't come to me unless they really want to make a change. And so to see transformation in someone's life like that is really profound. I mean, teaching drum lessons and then having someone want to be able to do a certain fill or something and then they master it, like that's exciting. But when someone goes like, I'm able to provide for my family better, or I'm going on tour and I'm in a bus and I'm traveling around the world, like that's just huge.
It's a life-changing, experience, a different approach.
It is. And the skills that, the stuff I had to get together in order to have a successful career as a musician, these are all things that I've applied to the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, and I think as musicians, we always think, well, I just need to get better. That's why I'm not more successful. It's like, work on getting better for sure. Be the best musician you can be. But most times people are not having success because of other things. And it's not because of their playing.
Okay, so in typical Matt fashion, you used your own life lessons to give back. So in this case, you're giving back in the form of your career coaching. So can you tell us a little bit more about your career coaching, specifically this 3-step program?
Yeah, sure. So been doing coaching now for about 10 years. And so similar to giving drum lessons, you just kind of start out teaching people what they don't know. And then over time, you realize that there's common challenges that everyone faces, you know. And the more I did this, I realized that everybody has a block. And so it shows up in a bunch of different ways. So I have people going, well, I just can't stay focused, or I'm procrastinating and I never get started, or I never finish what I start, or, you know, I can't even get started. I'm so afraid of failure. And so it shows up in all these different ways, but there's always one block. So I call all of those things symptoms, right? So someone might be chasing this symptom of procrastinating, thinking once they get that, then I'll be all set. But then something else pops up and something else. So rather than, you know, kind of trying to fix all that, it's like, let's go to the source of the problem, which is the block. And once we figure out what that is, then all that other stuff just seems to kind of fade away. And if those things do pop up, you learn to recognize them as a symptom and not the problem. So you're not going around going, oh, I'm such a procrastinator, I'm doing it again. It's like, okay, forget about that. Let's go back to that block. What's going on? Something is triggering you and it's showing up as procrastination, but in reality, it's that block underneath. So it's kind of like if you're standing on a ship and you notice that the floor is wet on the ship and you keep trying to like clean up all the water, but the reality is there's a hole in the bottom of the boat. So you're like trying to fix this thing that's a symptom of the bigger problem. And until you actually address that problem, you're going to be forever trying to manage the effects of it.
Well, that's really interesting. You know, I didn't know about you know, your coaching career, and that's really fascinating. If I may, Matt, you know, we go back to something that you're doing with Dominique Cote. So we had him in the show recently, and you work with him on his toy and record conventions.
Right.
We're going to discuss maybe later, but can you tell us some of the other events that you have worked on, both KISS and non-KISS related?
Yeah, sure. With Dom or?
No, all the others. So
in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, any of the convention type of stuff is all kind of KISS adjacent, you know, so whether it's like Preacher Fest, we just did the last one, which was Ace and Bruce and Vinnie Vincent and Peter Criss, and that was a lot of fun. Then there's different KISS conventions, you know, so we do a lot of those things. And sometimes Ace will play, and then I'll just stay through the weekend, or I might just go out and do the event myself. So yeah, I mean, again, like being a KISS fan, I was going to record conventions when I was 16. You know, when I was old enough to drive, I would find that there's like Sunday morning at 10 a.m. in some hotel in the ballroom, and there's like 30 record dealers, and they had, you know, then it was bootleg videos, and so, you know, you go check out these videos, bootleg records, or, you know, everything. So that whole world I love that whole thing. So yeah, when Dom and I met, and then he approached me about doing one of his record and toy conventions, I was definitely into it. We had a great time. And
so what are your thoughts about what Dom is doing with his conventions?
I think it's great. And he's a young guy. He's smart. You know, he's a smart guy, super organized, focused, and he brings in people. I think the next one we're doing, he's got a guy from Star Wars coming in. And so like he brings in, you know, typically like if you're in the KISS, you're probably in the Star Wars. You know, there's all these little things. There's this whole world. So he does a really good job of bringing in personalities from all those different worlds, and it's cool, man. It's a lot of fun, and it's got like this kind of rock and roll party atmosphere to it, so it's good.
Cool, thank you.
So Matt, your relationship with fans really is a tribute to you and your giving nature. What is your perception of KISS fans out there?
Well, I'm a KISS fan. One of my favorite memories was doing the KISS cruise that we did with Ace. Was through now probably about 3 or 4 years ago. But I walked off the elevator, and a guy walked on the elevator and took a KISS card and just stuck it in the pocket of my shirt. He didn't say anything, you know, and I look, and it's like, you know, one of the original KISS cards. And I'm like, this is great. I love these people, you know. So yeah, I mean, they've been, you know, to get to meet so many of them, they've been great. You know, they've just been so welcoming. and they can be pretty vocal. Tell Ace he's got to play this song, or why doesn't he play Snowblind anymore, or whatever. But no, I really appreciate it. Everyone's been so so welcoming and generous. Part of some of the different Ace groups out there, and I always enjoy it.
So, Matt, we're going to wrap up, the show pretty soon, but I wanted to ask you something. So, Gene recently said rock is dead. Okay, he was very vocal about it. And as a musician, what is your assessment of the music business today? Is really rock dead?
Well, I think, as far as the concert world goes, it's alive and well. I don't know what he was speaking to specifically, but I'm imagining he's speaking to, what they came up in, and that machine, and you do a record and you get on the radio and that drives the tour, and the tour goes out there and you sell a record. Like that whole cycle has been changed. And so you see a lot of bands, especially some of the legacy bands, not making records because they just, we're just going to go out and play the hits. That's what you guys want to hear anyway. And let's just celebrate it, So, that's a good headline, rock is dead, but, Kiss just played, I think they were in Brazil last night. So, I'm sure everyone in that place, including the guys in Kiss, felt that rock was alive and well. So,
exactly.
I think the business has changed dramatically, and as far as like rock and rollers being in the kind of in the public consciousness, the way that Kiss was, or the way the Motley Crue was, or the way the Metallica, your people's mothers know the names of these bands. I don't know that there's a bunch of moms walking around knowing about, Wolf Mother or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's not like that. I think the pop stars are more that, and the rap stars are more, have taken over that role. But that's just how it goes. It's just kind of the wave of everything.
It's a cycle. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Matt, one final question before we let you go. So what are some of your future endeavors that fans have to look forward to?
So we're working on a new record with Ace, which is going to be an original record. So, he does the original cover. So this one's an original one. And we gotten together earlier this year. We've been playing a bunch, so we haven't I know he's been writing, but we haven't had a chance to get together and record. But the one thing he said, he goes, I want it to be heavy. So I was like, all right, well, that's cool. We can do that. So I think everyone's going to really dig that. The band I'm with are called Black Swan, and we just put out a record now, probably a couple of months ago, and called Generation Mind, which is the second record. It's a really, really good record. Rob McCauley's singing on that. Jeff Pilson, who's been with Foreigner now for many years, was originally with Dokken, and Red Beach from Winger Whitesnake, and some really, really good stuff on that. So I'm really proud of that record. And I got a few other things I'm doing. One that's really interesting is bass player Mike Watt was a band called the Minutemen. He was played with the Stooges, just a super amazing bass player. And Alex Kane, who plays with Enough's Enough and Stars. He was in a band called LSD back in the day. But it's 4 pieces of music, and each one is probably about 10 minutes. And there is definitely no vocals. Sometimes I don't even play a beat. I'm just making sounds, so we're really just interacting with each other musically with whatever kind of, inspires us. And so that's been really cool. We just mixed the second track of that. So I'm guessing in the next couple of months that will be out. And I don't even know what it's going to be called, but that's something that I've never done anything like that before. And it was really a lot of fun to record that.
Awesome. Matt, thanks again, for sharing all the information, and we can't thank you enough, for your time within your busy schedule. Not only for sharing all, your musical huge background, but also, exploring the human side of Matt Starr, and now I understand much better why people love you so much. So you have a very interesting and captivating personality. So thank you so much for being in our show. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me, and hello to everybody up in Montreal and Canada. I love you guys.
Nice. And Matt, I gotta tell you, I have to be honest. I was actually nervous before coming on the show today. It's like, Claudio, we're gonna be interviewing Matt Starr. You know, I was nervous, but you know what? It's like Claudio was saying, and the fans are right. You're so down to earth and so calming. You make us feel like we're all friends and we're just hanging out, chilling out, and talking about Kiss. You know, and it was really a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, and like I said, anyone who's got a bunch of Kiss stuff on their walls, I'm like, I can hang with those dudes. That's cool.
Yeah, we'll have something in common.
There you go.
We do.
So once again, Matt, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, you got it, guys. See ya.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
To the Kiss Army. If you want to get involved with the Kiss Army Nation podcast, send us your comments, questions, or ideas to talk to me at kissarmynationpodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Spotify, Podomatic, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to make yourself heard. Leave us a comment on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. See you all soon, Kiss Army.